Thank you. Okay, well, I'll start briefly. You're standing actually on a wonder of the world, looking at a wonder of the modern world. They don't build temples like this in India anymore. They're expensive. Takes too long. We've been carving this temple for 20 years. Wow. A hammer and a chisel. All done by hand. No power equipment. In India, it's very common now, just like we, increase our power with construction implements, they can carve granite with power equipment. That's what they do now. They can also get stone by dynamite it out of the mountain. This temple is here because the founder of this monastery in 1975, early in the morning, had a vision of Shiva. In Hinduism, you don't build a temple because you like it's on a nice hill or something. It comes from the inside out, either through a vision or a dream, and the deity, the god, says, this is what I want. So he had this beautiful vision of Shiva, and the monks, Gurudeva decided, the founder decided, I want to build a temple the way they did it in the Chola dynasty in India. Of course, people lined up, say that's impossible. There's not enough silpies, carvers, stone masters. The shipping, if we buy a shirt from the mainland, $30 for the shirt, $20 to ship it here. Everything, if anybody who lives here knows, everything costs money to ship here. So how are we going to ship 3,500,000 pounds of stone to Kauai from 10,000 miles away? With a handful of monks who have no money? Not possible. Not only that, how are you going to put it on bedrock? In India, they would put this on bedrock. And what about dynamiting the mountain? We can't dynamite the mountain because when Gurudeva had this vision, he went to one of the most well-known Stapatis in South India, Dr. Ganapati Stapati, and said, we want to build a temple like they did 1,000 years ago. He says, well, then you can't dynamite the stone because this has a crystalline structure. This is white granite. Billions of little crystals in here, and if you dynamite it, you're going to shatter the structure of the stone, the sound of the temple, he said. Stone has sound. How about that one? So what they did was we got silpies to go on the side of the mountain and put little holes in the stone and then put wood wedges in there and water it. Crack. And then they would do it again and crack, and they'd roll it down on these big logs, and they hand quarried every bit of this stone. Wow. Then they hand carved every bit of this stone. We set up a building site right outside of Bangalore. We were very blessed. Gurudeva traveled the world a lot, and he was in India and met Trichy Swami one day. Trichy Swami is another one of these spiritual giants who realized God within himself. And when him and Gurudeva met, it was like two supernovas coming to the same room. Everybody who was in the room said they'd never seen anything like it. Well, Trichy Swami hardly ever left his room. He's the head of Kailasha Ashram. He flew to Kauai. He heard about Gurudeva's vision, and he wanted to build this ancient temple. He flew here, and him and Balaganga Dharanatha Swami donated 10 acres of land and helped them collect 74 of these stone masters, families. And they moved them onto this 10 acres. And they couldn't speak harshly or hit their wife in any way. They couldn't spank their children. They had to live in harmony with each other so that the artisans pounding out this temple would do it from their heart. So lots of obstacles along the way. Another thing was there's no bedrock in Kauai. We dug down. There's no bedrock. So the founder of the monastery says, well, go find me the foremost authority of concrete in the world. And so we found him at UC California, Berkeley in the engineering department. And if you can believe it, his name was Dr. Kamar Mehta. The guy was a Hindu. He spent his entire life studying concrete. South America, Greece, Rome. Why are those water ducts still intact? Why aren't they cracking? Why aren't they disintegrating? Because concrete in this country lasts about 50 years. And we put rebar in it, and we try to make it stronger. But what they found is in ancient times they used volcanic ash, and they mixed it with their concrete. So Dr. Mehta flew here for free. He went and got Dr. Langley, who is from Canada. He builds enormous expansion bridges over large bodies of water. They're like, you know, the mad scientist type. They don't wear socks, and they can't wait to get to work every morning. And they were absolutely so inspired to do this ground that you're standing on. They barge fly ash. Fly ash is a byproduct of coal burning plants. We get over 50% of our power in this world, electrical power, from coal burning plants. You pulverize the coal, you put it in a blast furnace, you burn the carbon out of it, you get electricity, heat. What's left is this microscopic powder called fly ash. If you open the door, it'll all blow all over the place. What they found was if you mix this with lime, it creates a cementitious reaction. It glues together. Not only that, if you mix it with concrete, it fills all the little pukas, you know. Concrete is inherently, structurally not very sound. That's why they use rebar. They try to tie it together. It fills in all the cracks. Then we had to go to the county council, the building department, and say, oh, by the way, we're going to pour the biggest concrete pour on this island, but we're not going to use rebar. And this is why we bring in these two professors. And then we had to go to the concrete companies and say, we want to mix our own concrete in your company. You know, can you imagine? Only on Kauai could you pull this off. Really, really. Those of you who live here know that although we are a funny little island, you know, we wouldn't let the super ferry come here. We don't want a lot of hotels. When we get a good idea that everybody's behind it, they'll do it. It's the most magical place. So we have people that will fly to Kauai, never look at one plant. They kind of notice there's a temple here, but they want to just stand where you're standing. They're taking core samples of this concrete now that is getting harder and harder and harder and harder. Every year it's curing. That's the problem with why we don't build our bridges and our roads out of it. It took years to cure, still curing. Then we had to take a D8 cat and put 3,500,000 pounds on top of it so that it wouldn't settle. It settled less than 1/8 of an inch on that corner. So the whole thing is a wonder of the world from a lot of different perspectives. A pillar like this, and you can see them carving. This is the same thing that happens in Bangalore. These are all carved in India and shipped in these big, the wood's all taken apart, but you'll see these big wooden containers, and we put the stone in that, and we put it on a big ship, and we ship it over here. Very huge project. A pillar like this, 4 men, 3 years to carve. And don't make a mistake when you get to this, because then you got to start over. It's very unforgiving, but some of the great art, we have it's not hanging out right now, but a solid chain. There's a 7,000-pound bell that's made out of white granite. You'll hit it with a sandalwood mallet. It'll sound just like a bell. Inside the inner sanctum there, that's where that 700-pound crystal will be in that big 11,000-pound Yanni base. You'll notice the little fencing here. We've left a big gap. We're going to bring it in this way. Should be here next year. We're looking forward to that. So it's a magical place. The symbology of Hinduism, it speaks of things through symbols. So it's like a library in stone. And we're going to eventually have a little catalog where you can walk around the temple and you'll know what each of these things means. So that's where the crystal will go, and that's where the priest will wave the light, ring the bell, invoke the divine energies. A very perceptive guest asked me one time, well, you just told me over there God's all pervasive. Why do you need a temple? It's like a giant magnifying glass. The sun's all pervasive, but you concentrate that energy so that tremendous spiritual force is released in these Hindu temples. People travel thousands of miles to go to particular temples that do certain things for them. This is a Kauai temple, and we can talk about that a little later, but it's what it will do for you. Just briefly, you know how you say people got a lot of baggage? You know, that guy's got a lot of baggage. Well, the idea is to dissolve all that subconscious dross. You can actually see it. It's like astral colors people drag along with them, little misunderstandings and big misunderstandings, things you didn't resolve, and it's like taking a purificatory bath. That's what this temple will do. Now, somebody said, well, how many Hindus live on Kauai? Well, hardly any. Well, why build it here? Because this is going to be a pilgrimage temple. People will come from all over the world to come here for like 3 days or 9 days and wander all the gardens. Even in India, there's some magnificent temples, but there's a sari shop or not a Burger King, but you know, a little restaurant over there. Here, we're surrounded by waterfalls and places to sit and meditate. If you're going through something tremendous and you're bawling under a tree, nobody's even going to notice you, because the guy next to you is probably going through something similar to it. So it'll be a protected area where people can come on pilgrimage and find the divine within themselves. We're going to come down this way on the property. It's going to go all the way down to the river behind you, and then you'll walk up these big 10-foot steps and you'll approach the temple this way. And there's lots of places to sit and quiet and waterfalls and koi ponds. So that was a lot of information.